wrestling news. We've watched him for years, we've heard about him for years. He's held numerous titles, and he is without a doubt one of the greatest wrestling superstars of all time. I'm talking about Bobby Lashley. He's in profile tonight, and let's find out exactly who this awesome superstar is. Well, let's get down to it here. According to Wikipedia, Franklin Roberto Lashley was born July 16, 1976, and is an American professional wrestler and mixed martial artist. He is currently signed to WWE, or World Wrestling Entertainment, where he performs on the SmackDown brand. He is an 8-time world champion, having been a 2-time WWE champion, 2-time ECW world champion, and 4-time TNA world heavyweight champion. Lashley is also known for his mixed martial arts, or MMA, career in Bellator MMA and Strike Force. So let me give you some statistics about Bobby Lashley. You know what? I'll save them for later. Let's get down to the facts. Lashley debuted in WWE in 2005, appearing on the SmackDown brand, where he became a 1-time United States champion. After being drafted to the ECW brand the following year, Lashley became a 2-time ECW world champion, the first African American to hold the championship. During this time, he had a high-profile rivalry with company chairman Vince McMahon, which included representing Donald Trump in the Battle of the Billionaires at WrestleMania 23 before leaving the company in 2008. He subsequently pursued a career in MMA and had his first professional fight in December 2008. After amassing a career record of 10-2, he signed with Bellator MMA in 2014, where he won all 5 of his career bouts from 2014 to 2016. In 2009, Lashley began appearing in professional wrestling promotion TNA, later renamed to Impact, where he became a 4-time TNA Impact World Heavyweight Champion and the first African American to hold that championship. He was also a 1-time X Division champion and the final King of the Mountain champion after returning to WWE in 2018. He was assigned to the Raw brand, becoming a 2-time Intercontinental champion and winning a 2nd and 3rd United States championship. He then won the WWE championship twice, becoming the 3rd African American to hold the WWE championship after The Rock and Kofi Kingston. He has headlined multiple pay-per-view or PPV events for WWE and TNA Impact, including the 2016 edition of the latter's flagship event, Bound for Glory. He is also one of the 2 wrestlers to have won the WWE, ECW, and TNA Impact World Championship, the other being Rob Van Dam. Lashley is the only wrestler to have multiple reigns with the aforementioned championships. So exactly, where did Bobby Lashley come from, and how did he get the name Bobby Lashley? I want to talk about his early life here. So, Franklin Roberto Lashley was born in Junction City, Kansas on July 16, 1976, the son of a U.S. Army drill sergeant. Lashley is of Panamanian descent. He grew up in a single-parent household with a mother who barely spoke English and struggled to secure a good job. He has 3 older sisters, one of whom is still on active service in the U.S. Air Force as of 2015. The family occasionally moved from one military base to another while his father was stationed at Fort Riley in Kansas. Lashley attended Fort Riley Middle School, where he was introduced to amateur wrestling in 7th grade as an off-season alternative to football. He later graduated from Junction City High School, where he continued to wrestle. He attended Missouri Valley College, where he was the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics national wrestling champion in the 177 pounds category in 1996, 1997, and 1998. Wow. And graduated in 1999 with a bachelor's degree in Human Service Agency, Management, and Recreational Administration. Take note, if you're going to be involved in professional sports, make sure you always have something that you can fall back on. He followed his father into the United States Army after college and continued to compete in amateur wrestling in the Army's world-class athletic program. During 3 years in the Army, he won a grand gold and several medals in the International Military Sports Council Senior Freestyle Wrestling event in 2003 while living and training in Colorado Springs. With the goal of qualifying for Team USA to wrestle at the 2004 Olympic Games, Lashley witnessed a bank robbery and was forced to dive for cover to avoid gunfire. This resulted in a knee injury that required surgery, ending his amateur career. So, how did Lashley get involved in professional wrestling? Well, now I'm going to talk about his professional career, his entrance into World Wrestling Entertainment from 2005 to 2008, and I'll talk about his undefeated streak from 2005 to 2006. In January 2005, Lashley made his debut for Ohio Valley Wrestling, a WWE development territory working as a Blaster Lashley. In mid-2005, Lashley appeared at 4 live events for World Wrestling Entertainment, or WWE, wrestling in dark matches for both Raw and SmackDown. On September 23, 2005, he made his televised debut as a face on SmackDown under his real name and was introduced as a 3-time National Amateur Wrestling Champion, 4-time All-American, 2-time Armed Forces Champion, and a 2002 silver medalist at the Military World Championship. In his first match, he defeated Simon Dean, whom he also defeated in his pay-per-view debut at No Mercy on October 9. On the November 11 episode of SmackDown, Lashley defeated Orlando Jordan in a qualifying match for a place on Team SmackDown at Survivor Series on November 27, where he was the first to be eliminated, but his team eventually won the match. On January 6, 2006, Lashley became the first SmackDown wrestler to qualify for that year's Royal Rumble. At the Royal Rumble on January 29, Lashley was the 8th wrestler to enter the match, in which he eliminated Sullivan, but was eliminated by the combination of Raw's then World Tag Team Champions, Big Show and Kane. It took 2 of them, to eliminate the brother. Following the Royal Rumble, Lashley began a feud with John Bradshaw Layfield, or JBL, leading up to a match at No Way Out on February 19, where Lashley suffered his first loss in singles competition, largely due to interference from Finlay. This prompted a feud between Lashley and Finlay, which lasted throughout February and March, and it notably included a lumberjack match on the March 17 episode of SmackDown, which Finlay won after using a shillelagh. After winning a last chance battle royal on the March 24 episode of SmackDown by Lashley eliminating MNM, Lashley competed at his first WrestleMania, that was WrestleMania 22, in the Money in the Bank ladder match on April 2nd, which was won by Rob Van Dam. Lashley next entered SmackDown's 2000 King of the Ring tournament, making it to the finals as he defeated Mark Henry and Finlay. However, in the final round, held at Judgment Day on May 21, he was defeated by Booker T with help from Finlay. As Booker was being crowned during his coronation, Lashley separated Booker. Lashley speared Booker through, he speared Booker into the throne. These acts developed into a feud with the newly named King Booker, and other members of his court, Queen Shamel Finley and William Regal. During this feud, Lashley won his first professional wrestling championship by defeating JBL for the United States Championship on the May 26th episode of SmackDown, which he lost to Finley less than 2 months later on the July 14th episode of SmackDown. Shortly after losing the title, a physician declared Lashley unable to compete, stating that during an annual exam, Lashley was found to have elevated enzymes of the liver and therefore would not be cleared to wrestle until further evaluation. Lashley returned a couple of weeks later to the SmackDown roster to continue his feud with the court and went on to earn his first match for the World Heavyweight Championship at No Mercy. On October 8th against King Booker, the bout was subsequently turned into a four-way bout, also including Batista. Ally Finley. King Booker won the match after pinning Finley. On October 14, 2006, Lashley moved to the ECW brand. I'm going to leave that for now. In the next installment of Bobby Lashley, I'll talk about how he became ECW World Champion, his injury and departure from ECW. For Black Wrestling News, I'm Todd Tanner.